You to reflect on this then now with Citizens Coalition for Change spokesperson, Promise Mkwananzi. Promise, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it then as well. Just help us get educated with regards to the story a little bit more, if you will. If the President Emmerson Mnangagwa has said that he actually denies all of this, he's not looking to extend his term, why exactly do we then, is there this notion that he actually is looking to do so and that his political regime should change?
Well, there's absolutely no doubt in the minds of Zimbabweans that Mr. Mnangagwa is angling to annihilate the constitution in order to extend his term beyond the 2 5-year term limits, which is illegal and unconstitutional and unacceptable in the eyes of the people of Zimbabwe, as well as in the eyes of any Democrat in the world. Mr. Mnangagwa has made pretentious moves to pretend that he's not interested in the 2030 agenda, but we do see his lieutenants moving very decisively in terms of trying to prepare for that unconstitutional extension of his term. And we do have intelligence as well that Mr. Mnangagwa is indeed contemplating. In fact, he has already decided that he wants to go beyond 2030. And the most frightening thing is that we also hear that 2030 is just a gimmick. He actually wants to go all the way to 2033, which is a full 5-year term that he would want to do without the blessing of the Constitution and the laws of Zimbabwe.
How do we know this for sure? I mean, what are the exact moves that you say he's making, or proclamations, or sounds, or noises, or anything that he's signed that actually says this is what he's actually looking to do? What is it that you know that says to you for sure that he's looking for an extension of his term?
Well, in his party's conference, the first resolution they made some months ago was that Mr. Mnangagwa should continue beyond 2030. The second most visible evidence is the behavior of his key lieutenants and supporters who continue to call for Mr. Mnangagwa to go beyond 2028. And this would not happen if Mr. Mnangagwa genuinely directed them to stop this unlawful annihilation of the country's constitution.
If he was indeed to extend or to look to extend his term by either changing constitutional laws, by changing rulings, etc., then would it take exactly what ousted his predecessor then? Would you need to do that ultimately to get him out of office as well, which ultimately entails a coup?
Well, in our view as the opposition in Zimbabwe, we believe that we must do everything permissible in a democratic society and under democratic institutions and principles to stop Mr. Mnangagwa from continuing up beyond the 2028 where his term of office ends. We are already in place, we are organized, and we support every effort to stop Mr. Mnangagwa from annihilating our country's constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, a constitution born out of a protracted struggle of democratic forces to come up with what I would call our political Bible that will guide and protect the rights and interests of the people of Zimbabwe and guard against the power machinations such as the one we see Mr. Mnangagwa attempting to do.
Let's talk just about Mnangagwa's reign as well then as president of the country then. There are calls for him to step down immediately, not just at the end of his term. Why has it been seen as the right move to have him step down now? Why has his reign been so bad?
Well, first and foremost, his reign has never been legal. His reign has been improper, so to speak, because he came in through improper means. And many hoped that he would immediately take the opportunity to come up with a transitional government and to arrest the economic deterioration in the country in order to give hope to the people of Zimbabwe. All that has not happened. Mr. Mnangagwa has failed or has refused to work with other political actors in the country to create a platform of unity and national dialogue and so on and so forth. And secondly, Mr. Mnangagwa has further damaged the economy. I think you know the taxations that are out there, they are literally criminal. I hear that there's an airtime tax coming. The economy is in a bad state. A few oligarchs that surround Mr. Mnangagwa continue to milk the country's key resource institutions and are living opulent lives at the expense of the majority of the people of Zimbabwe, at the expense of medication that somebody just spoke about, at the expense of every other thing that you'd expect a country to roll on.
Promise, very quickly, if tomorrow doesn't work, tomorrow would be just the first of these protests. Are you planning more?
Well, the truth is that these protests are not new. They've always been there. Tomorrow is actually, in our view, the beginning of the end of Mr. Mnangagwa. It is important that Zimbabweans stand strong and defend their country. The country is headed in a wrong direction. The economy is in a free fall. Mr. Mnangagwa is contemplating violating the constitution and staying forever and possibly replacing himself with his children or members of his family or his oligarchs. All those things you have to stop. And tomorrow becomes a remarkable moment to try and use all democratic means available to us to stop Mr. Mnangagwa, if possible, as soon as possible, if not by 2028, when the next election is due.
Promise Mkwananzi, Citizens Coalition for Change spokesperson there. Thank you so much for this. But at the same time, we are actually joined then by political analyst Dr. Jacqueline Sande, who joins us now as well. Dr. Jacqueline, we have word from Zimbabwe's Information Minister, Jenfan Muswere, who says that no violent demonstration will ever see the light of day. What does this tell you about the political discourse then in the country? Ultimately, are we at a standoff here where the government is refuting what people are saying, people are feeling, and ultimately trying to stand tall with no sort of clear agenda on understanding why people are complaining?
What we are seeing from Harare is that the Mnangagwa regime has always been insensitive to the plight of the people of Zimbabwe and has refused to take into consideration the complaints and the disgruntlement of the people of Zimbabwe. And now it has come to a point where when Geza spoke out, what he aired out resonated with the sentiments of most of or the majority of Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans at this current moment are feeling the brunt of a dysfunctional economy, which only serves the interest of Mnangagwa and those close to him, his cabal. And every other Zimbabwean has been sacrificed for the expedience of those who are in power. And when Geza spoke out, his message resonated with the people of Zimbabwe, and that is why you see that most people are in support of the calls for a protest starting tomorrow, the 31st of March. And Jenfan Muswere and all the other arms of government which have been speaking out against this protest, it shows that they have sort of panicked and they are aware that people are suffering and that people have got genuine complaints and grievances against the government, and what they seek to do is to quash or silence the people. But we will wait for tomorrow to see what it brings and whether the people will come out as much as they've been supporting Geza on public platforms, on Twitter and other social media platforms.
One thing's for sure, though, and just to give our viewers just some context as well, the Geza that you're talking about is Blessed Geza, of course, who's a Zimbabwean war veteran who has resurfaced recently, calling for unity during these planned protests then on the 31st of March, just to provide some context, of course, to some of our viewers then as well. At the same time, while this is happening, though, Jacqueline, one could say that we've had protests in previous regimes as well. I mean, during Robert Mugabe's tenure as president, there were protests. It didn't necessarily yield the kind of fruit that was needed, and ultimately it needed to turn violent. We saw that coup, which then rose Mnangagwa to presidency as well then. Is it a fear that it would need to take something like that for regime change to happen again in Zimbabwe?
Yes, I can foresee that there is that fear in the corridors of power, that tomorrow may be the beginning of yet another 2017 event where then Mugabe was removed from power. Because what is happening is not just that people are disgruntled with the government of E.D. Mnangagwa, but there is a concerted effort by Mnangagwa and his allies to increase or to extend his tenure of power to 2030. And that is sort of what has triggered this talk of an uprising or protest by the people of Zimbabwe, who are already not happy with his reign so far, and contemplating an extended tenure for Zimbabweans is sort of like extending a prison sentence. And that is why you see that people have kind of aligned themselves with Blessed Geza and his message. However, like you said, when Blessed Geza is saying, I'm calling for unity among Zimbabweans, we know that there's a mainstream opposition in Zimbabwe headed by Nelson Chamisa. And there are some who believe that any uprising or any protest should be headed by the leader of the main opposition, who is Nelson Chamisa. And at the end of the day, we have not seen whether or not he has aligned himself to the planned protest for tomorrow. And there is a reluctance by some quarters of political players who believe that any uprising or any demonstration against E.D. Mnangagwa should not come from any quarters of ZANU-PF, but should rather be led by Nelson Chamisa.
Have there been any positives from Emmerson Mnangagwa's reign as president then since 2017? Because that's what people are fighting here, ultimately saying that he hasn't necessarily done enough to change the country. There's still systemic challenges, whether it becomes economic growth, jobs, currency devaluation, all of those issues still major.
Emmerson Mnangagwa, when he took over from Mugabe, he promised quite a lot. He actually extended the olive leaf to the opposition and promised to bring Zimbabweans together and work together to work with all stakeholders to build Zimbabwe. But what we have seen is that Emmerson Mnangagwa has not delivered at all on his promises. Even those people who used to support him stopped supporting him when they realized that it was all about himself and his family and extending and increasing his hold on power. He consolidated power around himself and excluded everyone else. And the 2018 elections and the elections that are passed in 2023, it showed that Mnangagwa is not interested in democracy at all, excluding other players and conducting an election which was in shambles, which fell short of the requirements of a legitimate election. So what we have seen is that Mnangagwa has not done anything. And also people had high expectations in terms of economic restoration and job creation, and you see that this has not happened. There were also expectations that Zimbabwe will restore its own currency, but instead Mnangagwa has actually benefited from the continued parallel market rate between the US dollar and the official market rate between the US dollar and the so-called ZIG. So this has caused untold suffering, whilst it benefits those in power. And you see that this is why people are in support of this protest, which are scheduled for tomorrow.
We'll certainly be keeping eyes on this protest then as well. We certainly hope that it is not violent, that at least the change and the regime change that is being asked for